Hello everybody, my name is Gordon. Welcome back. Let's talk about this blog post. This is Infinity Ward's response to the community feedback, and it's not been positive at all. The community has not taken well to what Infinity Ward has given us in their response. Basically, they listened, but they disagree. Let's go through this blog post point by point. So, throughout weekend 1, we played the game, watched the game being played, read your feedback, and talked to many of you. At a high level, leading to weekend 2, we fixed various crashes, addressed a few gameplay exploits, patched some map, geo, and lighting issues, updated progression for some gunsmith-related bugs. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by this, though. It could mean the fact that the MP5 was still unlockable through that overkill exploit. It could be that some guns were not customizable in the gunsmith. Not exactly sure, but I sure hope that the gunsmith is more accessible to us in the second weekend of the beta, but I'm not expecting it, sadly. This is the part, though, that has the community up in flames right now. Minimap Dot Rules. Currently in the Modern Warfare 2 beta, we only show enemy player dots when a UAV is active. The design reason for this is that we do not want to punish players for firing their weapons. This is not great. Oh lord. We also want players to actively search out the origin of a gunshot versus just traveling directly to where the dot is on the minimap. We continue to gather feedback on how the game is playing in regards to this topic. I will also disregard this last line of text because Infinity Ward is a very stubborn studio, like I said in the last video. I really don't think that we're gonna see any change to this in the future. No. Sadly, Infinity Ward sticks to their guns. They did that with Modern Warfare 2019. The only thing that they did give to the community back then in that beta was giving us a minimap, because that game was going to launch without a minimap by default. You had to have a personal radar or a UAV or an advanced UAV in order to have a minimap in the first place. Also, now that I think about it, there is no personal radar in Modern Warfare 2. That's interesting. I am personally of the opinion that red dots on the minimap, no red dots on the minimap, it doesn't make a difference to me or my playstyle. I got used to how this was in Modern Warfare 2019. I did actually adapt to that system and ended up not really missing the red dots. However, this is not a common opinion. And even though I don't feel like the red dots are a necessity on the minimap, many players do feel like it is a necessity. Many players rely on the minimap information. One that is not given out by having UAVs. And I understand this point. This makes the UAV an absolute necessity most of the time. If you're not running a UAV, you're not helping your team and you're helping the enemy more than not. Or if you're not running a counter UAV in that sense, but a UAV is much easier to earn anyway. So, given that there are many points in favor of having those red dots on the minimap, even if it doesn't affect me particularly, the overwhelming majority of the community wants it back. So I see no reason not to have it back. Even if just try. Just give it to us in this second weekend of the beta. There's gonna be even more players now because it's a crossplay beta. You can gather a lot of data in Infinity Ward regarding the red dots on the minimap. If it truly gives you a negative result somehow, then I suppose at that point we could understand a little bit better, but players are still going to be mad. But still, I seriously see no reason to not have this. Why not? Just let us try it. Actually, just let us try it. That's my stance on this. Target tracking. This one's actually quite positive for me. So, we've seen feedback that it is hard to track targets once you get into a firefight. We agree that this is an issue and have changes incoming to reduce muzzle smoke opacity and to increase the visibility of the muzzle flash to help engage someone who is firing at you. These changes should help with tracking your opponents in combat. Thank you! I did mention the smoke is excessive. So having less of it, or hopefully none of it, realism, whatever, we're gonna have less smoke, and I'm absolutely fine with that. So, kudos to Infinity Ward for this one. We're also investigating more ways to visually differentiate enemies and friendlies outside of the standard nameplates above heads of the opposing players. We will be trying a few changes in weekend 2, more on that later this week. Man, Infinity Ward, they create problems for no reason. I don't understand why we simply just can't have nameplates. Why not? Why did you remove this? It's been a standard in Call of Duty for so long, only perks remove that feature. So why remove it? I don't understand. However, I do want to suggest one thing. Maybe not for launch, because by the time this video is out, the second beta is probably going to be out. I would like to see them introduce, or rather reintroduce, a feature that existed in both Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and 4, and it's those red glowing lights on enemy players. Since those games had specialists and there was no factions, so any team could have any number of specialists, to avoid confusion, then they had those red glowing lights on opposing players, and if I recall correctly, they had blue lights on allies. Don't remember that one because I didn't pay attention, but having red lights on enemies would be a massive help, and in my opinion would eliminate the visibility problem completely. You could just tell enemies apart. How about that? I don't even think that nameplates would even be necessary at that point, but I still think it's something that we should have, to be honest, just because there was no reason to remove it in the first place. Next, user interface, and I'm gonna have a lot to say about this in a future video. But okay, we've seen the feedback around difficulty editing perk packages, managing loadouts, and accessing the armory. We have identified some UX issues as well as some bugs. These are things we won't be able to adjust in time for beta weekend 2, but they are top of mind ahead of launch. Yeah, I understand that changing the UI with this little time could prove to be problematic. Now for the perks. We've seen varied feedback on the perk package system. Some players love it and others feel it's an unnecessary departure from the original system. Oh, isn't that right? We feel it's a nice shake-up to how perks work to the general progression of a match. We've also balanced the ultimate perks to be more powerful as you earn them later in the match. We'll continue testing throughout beta weekend 2, including drastically accelerating the earn rate of these to see how players react. Our goal remains improving the flow of all perks ahead of launch. And I agree with the point that it is unnecessary. Even though I did say that I don't mind the system at all, and I can see the benefits, I can see the pros, there are things that I do enjoy about the system, specifically the fact that ultimate perks can have a reason to exist in their current form, being completely overpowered, because those are things that you basically earn halfway through the match. Although with this acceleration that they're suggesting, it may be much earlier than halfway through the match, maybe 3 minutes in. I don't know, we'll see by how much they accelerate this, and we'll see what our reactions are. I say it is unnecessary because it just didn't need to be this way, though. A regular perk system could have still worked with what we have right now, the way that things are. It works, and I think it would work if they were all just available from the start. Again, though, I don't mind the way it is right now, but the problem is that accelerating this system might also prove even further that the system wasn't necessary in the first place, if you get what I'm saying. Like, if you're about to earn the bonus perk 1 minute into the match, then what was the point in locking it for that minute? And if we're gonna earn that ultimate perk 3 minutes into the match, that's like 30% of the whole match that we don't get to have that perk, and then the rest we do. So does it feel like we've progressed into earning that ultimate perk? I'm not sure. Like I said, this system needs more time in the oven. We need to really have more time with this to understand how to properly balance it. And the problem is that Infinity Ward have created yet again another problem for themselves by creating this system, and now they have to figure out how to solve it. That's Infinity Ward for you. And this is something that players also hated. Dead Silence is another hot topic, as many players have expressed that they would like to see it as a perk instead of a field upgrade. We believe it is important to game health that rushers are not able to move at high speeds without consequence. Dead Silence as a field upgrade creates a balance between freedom of movement and predictability of combat. Look, I'm not asking for complete Dead Silence in my perk. I'd like to see Ninja as an ultimate perk. I wouldn't even mind if it was a bonus perk instead of an ultimate perk. I actually thought about it as well. Dead Silence or Ninja could very easily be a bonus perk instead of an ultimate perk, so that you don't have it immediately. The first 1 or 2 minutes of the match can play out a bit more tactically, but then it gets crazier when players can now be stealthy about it. It's kind of like stealthy players being able to study the patterns of the enemy players so that they can plan their stealthy strategy accordingly, and when they have the perk available to them, they know how to move, they know how to act, and the enemy players will have to adapt to it. Isn't that kind of tactical? Dead Silence as a field upgrade, I also didn't mind in Modern Warfare 2019, and I was able to be somewhat more aggressive in that game, even without even using the field upgrade at all. In that game I use trophy systems and stopping power rounds. With the super high footstep audio of this game in particular, it would help a lot. It really would help. And is it redundant to have it as a perk and a field upgrade at the same time? Not really, because Vanguard, one of the very few good things that Vanguard did was allow you to have both. You could have Ninja as a perk and then Dead Silence as a field upgrade. If you didn't want to run the perk and you didn't want to be stealthy the whole match, boom, you had an option. Or if you just wanted to be stealthy the whole match and have another kind of field upgrade, boom, there's an option. It's all about options, and I'm pretty sure Infinity Ward said that this was all about giving us options. So I don't know what's going on there, but I suggest Infinity Ward still reconsider Dead Silence or Ninja, not entirely silencing footstep audio, reducing it by a lot, so that you can actually still listen to it, but not in the way that you're able to track the exact location of players like so many people have been doing in this beta. I've suffered those consequences as well. Please reconsider Infinity Ward. The majority of the vocal community have spoken about this. You should probably listen. And they have in a way, actually, because footstep audio in week 1 of the multiplayer beta was very high, giving player long-distance directional information about enemies. This was helped, by the way, by the fact that the audio system in this game is amazing. The audio is so clean to the point that, like I said, you can pinpoint the exact location of enemies as you hear their footsteps. You can know where they are at any point if they're close to you. That's amazing. That's a really well-made audio system, but it doesn't help gameplay-wise though. For weekend 2, we have some changes coming in. We are reducing the range of footstep audio for the various player movement states, jog sprint and tactical sprint. They're saying the range of footstep audio, which makes me think that, yeah, I won't be able to hear the footsteps of my enemies from as far as we've been able to, but when they're close, we'll still be able to hear them. The second change is that enemy and friendly footsteps are now distinct. This actually did cause me some problems, I must say. I would hear footsteps, and without looking at the minimap, I thought, oh fudge, those were allies. It can be confusing sometimes, so I'm glad that they're gonna make them distinct. That's really good, actually. This should help players better understand what's going on as things move around on the battlefield. More details to follow. Okay. Finally, slides. Sentiment around the removal of slide cancelling remains positive. We are aware of the workaround, nice, and are contemplating how to handle it for weekend 2 of the beta. Which leads me to think that it might not be entirely resolved by tomorrow when the beta comes back. Additionally, we have some other slide changes for launch which will make the movement feel a bit more fluid and snappy. And that is great, because the slide movement feels completely useless. Dolphin diving is much better in almost every situation. Sliding basically has no purpose in this game right now. Buffing it, but without giving us the ability to slide cancel, I think is the right move. Since both slide cancelling and dolphin diving are options now between each other, they need to be able to compete against each other and even have specific situations where you need to use one or the other. So buffing sliding, I think, is actually really good so that it can compete properly with dolphin diving. And there you go. The part that surprises me is that Infinity Ward listened and they addressed the feedback. The part that doesn't make me happy in any way, shape, or form is that they disagreed on things that the community seriously wants. And that's dangerous. People are not hopeful for this game anymore because of these statements from Infinity Ward, and this comes across as tone deaf in many cases. Specifically the Dead Silence and the classic minimap thing. I personally still remain hopeful. This whole minimap and Dead Silence thing won't affect me, and they won't affect my enjoyment of this game since I was able to enjoy Modern Warfare 2019 without these things in the game. So all I really care about are the other things. The muzzle smoke, the user interface, the perk system to some degree, the footstep audio, and the sliding. Those in my opinion are some good responses from Infinity Ward, but they probably should have explained their viewpoint a little bit better, and many members in the community have been making really good arguments against Infinity Ward's logic. So I seriously think that nobody should be so stubborn as to not even give the other side a chance. Infinity Ward should, even if they don't agree with the community, but they shouldn't try the things that the community are suggesting Even if it's a special playlist, I don't care. But just try and see what happens. If it turns out that they were right this whole time, they can stick to their vision, they will anyway. But what if the community was right and the game definitely feels a lot better, and they receive tons and tons of positive feedback for applying these changes? That would be quite beneficial for the game, and it could even help you sell this game better. It's like now Infinity Ward, the studio that truly listens to the community and are willing to try things that the community suggests. What a great studio! Sadly, you guys are actually coming across as tone deaf and stubborn. Even though I've always had the idea that Infinity Ward was a super stubborn studio. But yeah, quite excited to jump back into this tomorrow and see these changes for myself. I hope that my enjoyment of the game increases significantly because of these changes, these improvements, and hopefully there's more to see on launch. So still quite excited for this game. I'll see you tomorrow then, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.